including that sort of information. The numbers, that is. Qualitative measures. Measuring qualitative features, provides us with an accurate and specific evidence for what is complex text for our students. There are two rubrics that will help guide teachers to determine qualitative measure. Remember that the qualitative measure is determined flexibly by the teacher. As an expert of the text, knowing it intimately enough to measure it, ideally, and honestly I wouldn't do it any other way, collaborating with another peer or colleague. So it measures things about levels of meaning, levels of purpose, the structure of the text, organization, language conventionality, language clarity, and prior knowledge demand. So you really need to think about what qualities it demands. These are the two rubrics that are available to you. Qualitative measures are best measured by an intensive reader. This is not a quick task. It is something that demands looking at the rubric, using the rubric, and talking with another individual about. There are no number values attached to these. It just ranges from high, middle, low, all the way down to low. You'll notice that the rubrics appear similar in nature. They serve the same function. They have categories. However, they are specific to informational text and literary text as well. Because the factors of literary text are different from informational, these two things, like I said, determine they have different content in them. And because they represent a continuum, the factors, rather than distinct stages or levels or numbers attached to it, there are no numbers in this rubric at all. Instead, the 4 points along the way are those high, middle, low, and low. So how are you going to use this rubric? Great question. We're going to look at To Kill a Mockingbird and think about it. Hopefully this is a familiar text and that you can at least relate to some of the points that we're making here along the way. So users read across the top of the 4 columns in each row of checkboxes on the rubric, identifying which descriptors best match the text by marking a particular checkbox. Levels of meaning is selected as middle high. Perhaps the reader considered it to be a coming-of-age story, a social commentary, and the text that examines the effect of the Great Depression. In that case, middle high is an appropriate mark. On the other hand, if you look under structure, the reader didn't even mark on the continuum, noting that there are not graphics authored in To Kill a Mockingbird. I would actually consider, I had talked about this with another group, saying that I would consider with a junior or senior group to have those students actually use this rubric to analyze a text. I think that there's much value in it, in fact. So again, you notice that in structure there were no use of graphics. Language and conventions and clarity. The meaning is middle high, that there is some inferred meaning, some figurative and ironic language. Lord knows Harper Lee put it in there. Register. It's not overly academic, but it is occasionally unfamiliar, especially when you're talking about legal things and time period features. And then the knowledge demands demand middle high for life experience. Notice it says explored multiple themes. You can think thematically differently about this. That culturally and literary knowledge demands, it says many references and allusions to other texts, intertextuality, and let's just say it's probably likely cultural elements. Finally, under knowledge demands, subject matter requires some content knowledge. I imagine that's related to law or the South or that time period. Again, this is something that you can discuss as a group and really benefit from having a rich discussion with your colleagues about. So now we have, from examining these quantitative measures that we discussed before, Lexa places it at 870 and ATOS at 5.6. Notice it says, from examining the quantitative measures, we knew. That's something you know because the number is produced. Then our next thought is, after reflecting upon the qualitative measures, so qualitatively, we believe, meaning we have taken our knowledge and our opinions and formed this information, that we believe that it is best placed at the 9th and 10th grade level. I really appreciate how the language says we knew and we believed, and that is why we take the time to have our agreements written down for others to see in the placement form. So our initial placement of To Kill a Mockingbird into text complexity band changed. We had started out in the 4th and 5th grade level when we examined those quantitative measures, and changed once we considered the qualitative measures. Remember that we have only done 2 legs of the triangle. The third demands that the teacher look at the student as a reader of the text. So that's why we are considering reader and task considerations. There's a great checklist for reader and task considerations. It's actually like an inventory. It's another handout that you will have as well, that has questions to consider about motivation, knowledge and experience, purpose for reading, complexity of the task assigned to the text. So not only having the text there, but what's the kid going to do with it? You have to think about that in advance. And finally, complexity of questions asked regarding that text in particular. And lo and behold, here's the form for you. This is the handout for you. There are great questions here. It's a conversational piece, again. So it's meant to make teachers talk to each other and reflect about the text, the students, and what they're asked to do with the text. Let's think about To Kill a Mockingbird. Are you comfortable with having a conversation based on that 5th grade reading level with 10-year-olds about the courtroom scene? There are just so many things that you need to consider as a teacher contextually about a text, even if it is at a lower reading level. Where is it developmentally and based on maturity? Where do students need to encounter that text? So what aspects of the text will likely pose the most challenge for my students? That's one of the categories. Content and theme, text structure, language feature challenges, knowledge and experience demands, something we cannot control. Motivation, there's extrinsic motivation, but most of it needs to come from our intrinsic experiences when it comes to text. We're also going to consider the Common Core standards that should be focused on in teaching the text. Are there areas of focus we need? What standards do my students need the most practice with? So you're thinking about that student again. Remember, reader and task consideration. Will the complexity of any before, during, or after text of the questions be asked about the text interfere with that reading experience itself? And finally, what supports do I need to provide so that my students can access that text? That's the greatest thing about the Common Core state standards, is they demand that students experience grade level text. Even if they are behind, they need to experience that. So teachers are, have a mountain in front of them. How am I going to provide scaffolds to access that text with that child? So here's one little example. It is only one way, but this is one way that instructionally you can address text complexity. You can help readers reach that. You can scaffold using this strategy called the rah reading strategy, starting with a read aloud. And so a teacher then models that fluency and scaffolds with vocabulary and comprehension, moving to a read along, that there's some scaffolding for decoding, fluency, and vocabulary. And finally, the read alone, that it's independent, that there's little to no scaffolding there. Notice you see the gradual release of responsibility embedded within this, that perhaps teachers use this method for scaffolding that supports readers in order to access that text. It's just one way for scaffolding. Finally, in looking at reader and task considerations, based on our examination of the reader and task considerations, it really makes you feel like a professional when you do this. We have completed the 3rd leg. Note that we're going to make a recommendation. Ideally, it's going to be a collaborative team of teachers who all know the text well enough to make the determination. If you are a one-man department, maybe there's a cross-curricular connection that you can make with another colleague or educators, perhaps even in other districts who have evaluated the same text. It really promotes collaboration. After reflecting on all 3 legs of the text complexity model, we can finally move to that 4th step, making a recommended placement within a text and begin documenting it and thinking about how we're going to use this text. So why would we document this? Why go through step 4 after you look at all 3 legs of the triangle? Maybe there's newer incoming teachers. Maybe there's high school courses passed on from teacher to teacher. Maybe you don't teach it every semester or every year. There are censorship challenges from parents and community members. Perhaps even a school board may wonder why using a particular text. I know it happens. You could establish a local curriculum, core novels and text at grade levels. Everybody has their special thing that they want at their grade level. This type of analysis provides that concrete evidence about where it should be placed best. And finally, it makes the teacher provide a close examination of grade level text. That's the truth about it, is that it makes you look deeper into a particular text. So using this protocol, we have progressed through each leg of the text complexity model. 1, those quantitative measures. 2, the qualitative measures. And finally, 3, the reader and task considerations. Now we're ready to review all 3 legs one last time and make that final recommendation for placement in this text into a text complexity grade band. Based on all the information, all 3 legs of the model we felt that is most appropriately placed for, yes, grades 9 through 10. It was anticlimactic for you, I'm sure. We can even go and confirm our evaluation of this by looking at Appendix B, and you'll notice that within the exemplars, grades 9 through 10, there's Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. It validates and vets our analysis that this exists. I mean, some people may use the text exemplars perhaps as a starting point for selecting texts, but it is certainly not it's certainly not the end-all be-all for what teachers should teach. So finally, you're left with this text complexity analysis of form. This is the placement form that you will be manipulating and submitting. This is a one-page template. It has all 3 components there. It allows you to keep a record in a quite uniform way. This is a document that is also provided for you. And here's the up-close version, so you can see that there are qualitative measures, quantitative measures, reader and task consideration, and finally a place that allows for a narrative type entry is in the recommended placement way down at the bottom there under the black bar. So if you take a moment, you're welcome to look over the analysis of To Kill a Mockingbird and how it comes together. I go straight to the recommended placement just for that summary piece. It's classic. And many teaching resources are available online at many sites, so you can access a lot of things to help students reach that text. The novel is best placed in the 9th and 10th grade band. The Common Core State Standards, text exemplars also place us in the 9th and 10th grade band. That's the summary that this group came up with. There's a handy-dandy bookmark. I thought about if I were in a department, how would I ensure that we are all on the same page? And as we're going through text for the remainder of the school year, I'd really recommend having this as a bookmark that I will also provide for you that you can just shove into the book as you're reading it with your students. And you can really think about the qualitative things and the reader task considerations as well. The quantitative measures, that's a 5-minute dose on the computer for you. But if you have that right next to the text as you're currently teaching it, it really demands you to think about that text in another type of way. So for your intermittent text complexity needs, or if you're in the mood, you can keep this handy-dandy bookmark near you as well. Something to consider. If you want to see other examples of completed final recommendations, there are many out there for contemporary texts, ranging in all types of levels. These are just some examples for you. I think a text complexity search for final recommendations in a search engine will produce many examples for you. So your job, your collaborative task with your teammate. First job is to select a text you're using or intend to use in a course. Second job is to conduct an analysis of the 3 legs of the triangle. Using those tools provided, the forms, the rubrics, the documents that we talked about, is to complete that recommended placement form for the selected text. And then to take it one step further, beyond working with those 2 people, you 2 as a team, is to report your results to your grade level or your department, however you identify yourself in a PLC setting or who you work most closely with. To have that conversation about your results. Be proud of it. Share out, because it takes a professional conversation in order to produce something like this. And finally, submit that completed placement form. And those details will be included in the description of how to complete this module as well. So good luck to you. Email, call, let me know if you have any questions about text complexity. As you can tell, this sort of stuff excites me. Have a great day.